Disclaimer. Viewer discretion advised. This content contains strong language, mature themes, and depictions of violence, abuse, and trauma. Viewer and listener discretion is strongly advised. The characters, events, and locations in this production are entirely fictional. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or real events is purely coincidental. This story is a work of fiction created for entertainment purposes only. Copyright disclaimer. This production may contain copyrighted material, the use of which has not always been specifically authorized by the copyright owner. This content is used under the guidelines of fair use under Section 17 of the Copyright Act of 1976, which allows limited use for commentary, criticism, education, scholarship, and research. All rights and ownership remain with their respective creators and copyright holders. In a city where silence is survival and loyalty gets you killed, one woman rose from the system, outplayed the streets, and built an empire you were never supposed to see. This is the story of Cartier Monroe, a ghost in the game, a queen born from pain, and a name that still echoes through South Central like a warning. You're listening to Phantom Crime Tales, where the shadows talk, and every story leaves you questioning what's real. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Shadow watches, the streets are watching, and so are we.
The world of South Central Los Angeles in 1998 was a harsh, unforgiving blur of shadows and grime. The city moaned with the weight of its own heartbeat. Distant sirens, lowriders rumbling past on cracked pavement, and a baby's faint cry almost lost in the urban fog. Down a narrow alley, hidden behind peeling brick and walls tagged with faded gang signs, a dumpster overflowed with rot and forgotten things. Beneath the dim flicker of a caged bulb, a newborn lay abandoned in stained blankets, smaller than a football. Her cries were weak, her breath a whisper, but she held on. A lean, skinny, cautious stray brown and white dog padded into the alley, sniffed at the infant, whimpered, and disappeared back into the night. The infant's face twisted, eyes shut tight, tiny fists clenched, hungry and alone, but alive. The years that followed painted a mosaic of survival. She was found before the rats claimed her. Wrapped in the filth-stained blanket the city left her in. No note, no name, no future. The system gave her a number and moved on. They called her Cartier, a name far too luxurious for a girl who knew more about roaches than rings. In the early 2000s, at an orphanage, 6-year-old Cartier was quiet, always watching. She sat alone in a cluttered playroom while chaos erupted around her. She ignored the other children, her gaze sharp, analytical, observing everything. When a social worker tried to offer her a rainbow-bright doll, Cartier just stared, unblinking, her eyes empty, already too old. Her early years blurred through a carousel of foster homes, each one colder than the last. Some saw her as a paycheck, some a live-in bedroom buddy. Others saw her as a problem, but none saw her at all. In one house, the walls were covered in Jesus and judgment. Her skin, too dark for the white sheets she was told to sleep on. The woman of the house dressed her in old clothes 3 sizes too small and whispered prayers loud enough for her to hear.
Lord, don't let her curse rub off on the other kids.
The man of the house had quieter intentions. He came at night, with breath that reeked of gin and secrets. She learned to sleep curled in the corner, shoes still on, eyes open. He told her it was love. She learned not to believe men who say that in the dark. Another house was just a warehouse, with kids stacked like crates. Different ages, different faces, same emptiness. There was never enough food, never enough care. They left her alone for hours, sometimes days. She went to school smelling like mildew and shame, stomach growling louder than her voice ever could. At lunch, she watched kids unwrap sandwiches, chips, and juice boxes while she stared at the ceiling. Teachers whispered. Students laughed. You smell like outside. Your socks don't match. And they dirty? Don't sit next to her. She stinks and she got bugs. Cartier learned early. The world don't hand out kindness. You take what you can, or you starve. They didn't know her name, but they knew how to throw blades with their mouths, and she bled without scars. By 2005, at one of her foster homes on West Adams Street, she was 9 when the yelling started. Foster mother screaming, foster father drunk, the TV blaring distorted cartoons in the corner. Cartier stared through it all, unmoving, already a ghost. She had already learned to disappear into the background. By the time Cartier turned 11, she stopped unpacking her things when she arrived at a new house. Not that she had much, mused as he gestured to the duffel bag with ripped handles and a diary she never wrote in. She didn't cry anymore. Tears didn't get you fed. They didn't stop fists, and they sure as hell didn't stop what crept through bedroom doors at night. She learned to move silent, eyes sharp, back always to the wall. If you're invisible, they can't aim at you. If you speak up, they call you difficult, or damaged, or fast. So she said nothing, she just watched and remembered. One day, a substitute teacher caught her stealing an apple from a desk drawer. Instead of calling security, the woman knelt down and whispered,
"Baby, you don't have to take it, just ask."
Cartier stared at her like she'd grown 2 heads.
As?
She hadn't been asked how she was doing, what she needed, or if she was okay in years. The woman packed her a brown paper bag and slipped $1 into her palm with a wink.
"For the vending machine. Don't tell the principal."
For a split second, Cartier thought maybe, just maybe, the world wasn't all knives and cold hands. But by the time she returned to class the next week, the woman was gone, transferred, or fired, or quit, like everyone else who showed her the least bit of kindness. The kindness was real, but it didn't last. At all. Ever. Truth be told, in Cartier's world, nothing ever did. Los Padrinos, Juvenile Hall, 2008. Cartier was 14, thin, fast, and razor-wired with rage. Her body was all elbows and reflex, her eyes sharp enough to cut glass, skin stretched tight over bones, fury stitched into every step. She wasn't the biggest, but she was the quickest. Smart, cold, mean when she had to be. Survival wasn't optional, it was instinct. The hallway buzzed with fluorescent lights and bad intentions. It stank of dirty bleach water and old sweat. There stood Monique, blocker her path of travel. She was a husky, funny-looking girl, taller, thicker, louder, a known bully. Cinder block walls boxed them in, no guards in sight, just 2 girls, 1 hallway, 1 way out. The other girl was bigger, older, built like a linebacker with a mouth full of disrespect. "What you looking at, skinny?" she spat, stepping forward. "You think you tough, huh?" He didn't wait for an answer. Cartier didn't answer, nor did she flinch. She cracked her knuckles, and then she pounced. A blur of fists and fury. She went low first, popping the girl in the ribs, then came up with a right hook that split her lip. The other girl swung wild, caught Cartier across the cheek with a sharpened toothbrush. Cartier's skin tore, blood gushing everywhere. Cartier didn't stop. She grabbed the girl by the collar, slammed her back against the wall so hard the echo shook the unit. One more punch. Then another. The bigger girl slid down to the floor, groaning, her pride bleeding harder than her face. A blur of jabs, knees, and instinct. Cartier fought like she was born in the ring, fast, low, and surgical. She ducked one wild punch, came up under the chin with a tight uppercut that rattled bone. The other girl swung again, this time dragging the sharpened toothbrush across her brow. But she still didn't care. She didn't blink. She didn't stop. Cartier screamed and slammed the girl into the wall over and over until her body slid down like wet laundry. Officers were yelling, boots stomping toward them. She didn't try to run. She stood tall, blood dripping down her face, chest heaving, hands still clenched. "Now you know how tough I am," she whispered, stepping over the girl like trash in her path. That was the day she got her first 2 scars. In 2011, at a group home off of Florence and Firestone, Cartier was 16, silent in the shadows. She moved silently, her presence barely registered by the oblivious adults around her. While the other teens argued in front of a blaring TV and the adults were busy trying to break them up, she deftly picked the lock on a worn wooden cabinet with a bobby pin, slid out a wad of cash, and smoothly walked out the back door, never to return or be reported. Crenshaw and Slauson, 2013. Cartier was 18 now, grown in body but damn near ancient in spirit. She leaned against a scratched-up MTA pole, one sneaker pressed to the base, hands in her hoodie pockets, face carved out of stone. This wasn't sightseeing. This was surveillance. Her eyes swept the block like radar. Left, right, behind her. Nothing moved without her clocking it. Cars crept by slow, music rattling windows, bass thumping like heartbeats on the edge of war. A gray Charger hit the corner twice. Same driver, no plates. She took mental note. Tinted windows, low profile, wrong energy. Click, stored. Men leaned out car windows, tossing catcalls like trash. Cartier didn't flinch. He didn't even look at them. She wasn't prey. She was the problem. Girls strutted past in Fashion Nova fits, phone glued to hand, oblivious to everything Cartier was clocking. She wasn't here for them either. She was studying movement, watching who dapped up who kept looking over their shoulder, who had too much money for a slow day. She knew the tempo of the block, and when the rhythm changed, so did the rules. Her silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. They didn't notice her. They never did. And that's exactly how she liked it. She spotted him 3 days in a row. Same time, same block, same chain swinging from his neck, like he didn't value his life. Real clean, real careless. Katia clocked his movements like a chessboard. He ran collections. She could tell. Fat envelope in his hoodie, always handed off to someone who never looked too grateful. That's how she knew it wasn't just weed. This was money with teeth. So she followed him, waited until he cut down the alley behind a laundromat. Then she made her move. She came in fast, hoodie up, blade drawn, pressed to his ribs before he could blink.
"Run it, all of it."
But he didn't panic, didn't beg. He smiled.
"You serious? Do you? Nah, you can't be. You don't even know who the hell I am."
"Nope, don't know, don't care. Like I said, run it."
He said, pressing harder. Then he turned real slow, revealing a Desert Eagle tucked firmly in his waistband. He didn't even pull it out on her. He just opened his jacket, looked down at it, then back up at her with furrowed eyebrows, with a knowing look, as if to say, "Are you sure you want to play this game?"
"Didn't think so,"
he said, letting go of his jacket, allowing it to close, concealing his weapon.
"You definitely got heart. You stupid, real stupid. But you got some heart, though. Come on, come with me. Let's walk and talk."
Cartier hesitated, then backed off, looked around, and then followed. His name was Rome. Older, slick-tongued, with hands that stayed dirty. He ran the block with quiet force, not loud, not flashy, but respected and dangerous, very dangerous. Over the next few months, he taught Cartier everything: how to bag, how to spot a narc, How to shake tails, how to collect money without saying too much, how to make people pay one way or another. He sharpened her hustle, polished her edges, let her handle small drops at first, then big ones, introduce her to real weight, taught her when to smile and when to swing. Cartier soaked it up like concrete drinks blood. She became his shadow, his student, his soldier, but just as she always said, nothing good ever lasts. It was a summer night in July, not a breeze in sight. Rome stood outside a corner store, talking slick to a girl in jean shorts, a white tank, and red and white Nike Dunks. Cartier was 2 steps behind him, head on swivel, but even she didn't see it coming. 4 doors, windows down, gun barrels out. Brrr, arty. Cartier hit the ground, ears ringing, face to pavement. Rome didn't. His body jerked like a puppet, then folded sideways. Blood bloomed around him like roses on concrete. The car peeled off before she could even breathe. She crawled to him, grabbed his shirt. He was choking on blood, eyes wide, trying to speak. "Handle yours, baby girl, just like I taught you," he said in a raspy tone. Then nothing else, he closed his eyes. Cartier buried him herself, not in the ground, but in her chest. Every lesson, every scar, every deal. She turned it all into power. She stepped into his territory before his body was cold, walked into trap houses full of grown men, and took what was his without blinking. The ones who tested her didn't test nobody else after that. She ran Compton like a warlord, with tit and ass. Cold, calculated, untouchable. They called her Cartier Monroe now. The girl from the trash turned queen of the block. And if you said her name, you better whisper it. In the present day, they called her Aunt Trish, but Cartier was no blood of hers. Trish was Rome's older cousin, slick, calculating, and wrapped in Sunday silken secrets. Back in the day, she used to ride shotgun on runs, cook up drops, launder money through beauty supply stores and church bake sales. She was loyal to Rome until she wasn't. When Rome died, Trish was the one who showed up for Cartier, offered her a roof, a plate, and a seat at the table. But it wasn't kindness, it was control. She thought Cartier would be raw, broken, easy to mold. Another quiet soldier in her tired little army. But what she didn't expect was the spark, that dangerous mix of grief, ambition, and intelligence that Rome had always said made Cartier different. What Trish didn't know, or maybe what she refused to admit, was that Rome saw Cartier as the future, not her, and that burned. She taught Cartier the game, but always with limit, gave her scraps of knowledge, not the whole recipe, tested her, sent her on risky runs, tried to catch her slipping. But Cartier didn't fold. She thrived. Every time Cartier succeeded, Trish felt that grip on her empire slipping. It wasn't just jealousy. It was also fear. Because deep down, Trish knew the girl from the system, the girl with nothing, was about to take everything. And she couldn't let that happen. Not again. The kitchen in Aunt Trish's Hyde Park home still smelled like collard greens and secrets. But tonight, the secrets were louder. The pot simmered low, steam rising like ghosts from the past. Gospel played softly in the background, but it couldn't drown out the tension that clung to the air like grease. Cartier, 23 now, stood at the counter drying dishes, dressed in black. Not mourning. Her hands moved with that same cold precision Trish had always admired and secretly resented. Across the room, Trish counted money. Neat stacks of hundreds lined the table next to a worn leather ledger. Her nails were sharp and glossy, her gaze sharper. She didn't look up when she spoke.
Vico's ass came up, ran short again this morning. He's 500 light this time. He said something about the buyer tried to strong-arm him on San Pedro, basically said, there's competition out there.
San Pedro, new territory. He's been there before. He knows the rules. Sounds like he's getting sloppy to me. Or something else.
Shit. That boy's too scared. But if you ask me, he needs a lesson, a hard lesson.
Trish finally looked up, locking eyes with her Cartier. Her eyes, shrewd and calculating, met Cartier's like a razor.
You got that look, like you know how to fix it, like you see weak points. You always got to fix, don't you? Like you see through people.
Vico ain't built for it. He's becoming a liability. He talks way too much and he moves like he's untouchable. He's too loud, too emotional, and he leaves trails.
Trish smirked. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Trish let out another soft laugh, almost bitter.
You talking like you ain't got flaws, girl. That's why you're here, ain't it? Quiet money's the real money. The untouchable money. And quiet powers, the only kind that lasts.
Gardy's gaze didn't waver. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Trish waved her hand, motioning her over.
Come here. Come see how the real money moves.
Cartier stepped forward. She didn't see a mentor anymore. She saw a gatekeeper, a woman holding on too tight to a crumbling kingdom. Nevertheless, she didn't just listen. She absorbed, learned the game under Trish's hand, the drops, the pickups, the cuts, the percentages, the fronts. The invisible empire woven through South Central from Exposition Park to Watts, even out to Carson, Hawthorne, and Inglewood. And deeper than that, she saw how to do it better. Cartier's eyes taking in the numbers, the strategy, the subtle, intricate web of power, flickered with something more than just survival. Ambition. A hunger for something far greater. Later that night, the room smelled of sweat, steel, and smoked meat in Legend's Crenshaw apartment. A low, rhythmic, almost meditative hip-hop beat filled the space, and the distant sound of a train horn from the Alameda corridor provided a melancholic backdrop. The apartment was sparse, almost monastic, with weights neatly stacked in one corner, posters of martial arts legends, and a framed photo of Bruce Lee adorned the walls. Legend, in his 20s, quiet and muscular, with a deep, calm presence that belied his lethal capability, was mid-set, doing one-armed push-ups, muscles rippling. He was covered in intricate tattoos that crawled up his arms and neck like silent calligraphy. He didn't talk much. Didn't need to.
Ear punk, it's some pulled pork from Earl's. They had greens. You earned it, I guess.
Legend finished his set, rising smoothly without a grunt or heavy breath, and nodded silent thanks. They had been day ones since meeting in a group home years ago, two silent observers in a chaotic world, kids with no parents, no peace, and no protection. Cartier had just been transferred in, 14, angry, quiet. She didn't talk much. Legend didn't either. They noticed each other from across the cafeteria. Not a word exchanged. Just eyes. Two ghosts, recognizing another. 3 nights later, a grown man, one of the night staff, came into Cartier's room. Again, she froze. But this time, he didn't get far. Both too smart for the system, too quiet to be trusted, and too angry to be broken. Cartier had stabbed a boy with a fork for cornering her in the laundry room. Legend took the fall without blinking. When she asked him why, he shrugged and said, "'Cause you ain't built for juvie again." "I am." After that, they were locked in. They didn't talk much, never had to. Silence was their native language. They sat and ate in comfortable quiet, the only sounds the clinking of plastic forks and the distant hum of the city. Legend was waiting. He'd been watching, listening. When the door creaked, he moved, silent as breath, fast as instinct. A broken broom handle. A single warning. Touch her again, and you won't get to leave. Together, they beat him half to death. Years later, one night at an old, abandoned warehouse near Slauson, Franklin wakes up in a metal folding chair, tied, gagged, eyes wide, Legend leans against the wall in the shadows, arms crossed, no emotion. Cartier steps out of the dark, holding a roll of duct tape and a photo, her, age 12, the year he stole her childhood.
You remember me? You used to check my bed. Said the lock on the girl's bathroom was broken.
She holds up the photo, taped to his shirt.
That was the last year I cried. You thought you broke me, but nope. You didn't break me, but you made me who I am today.
She pulls a switchblade from her jacket. Walk slowly, controlled. Legend moves behind Franklin, not to stop her, but to hold him still.
Whatever she do to your rotten ass, you earned it.
Cartier didn't yell. She didn't curse. She made it surgical. No screaming, no chaos, just pain. Cold, controlled, clean. Legend never flinched. He held the chair while she carved the truth into Franklin's chest.
We don't forget.
They left him alive, bleeding, unrecognizable. A few weeks later, parked somewhere off Alondra. They sat on the hood of the car, midnight air, both silent.
You ain't had to help me.
Yeah, I did. You were the only one who saw me back then. Now they gonna see us.
She looked at him. No words, just that nod. That's when the bond locked. Not partners, not friends, just unspoken, blood-sealed loyalty. Present day.
Trish is slipping. She hides it well, though, but I see the cracks. She lets emotion cloud her judgment, and it's leaking into her moves. She got too many loose ends. Too many loudmouths around her with nothing to lose. Rico's just the rot we can see, but the disease is deeper. Her whole game, outdated. She's still playing checkers in a chess match.
Legend didn't answer. He just chewed, listened with a steady gaze.
But she brought you in, though. I mean, she is teaching you the game, yo, and she gave you a roof.
She brought me into her game, her rules. I'm writing my own rules, building something different, something they won't even see coming. Clean, quiet, untouchable.
She looked up, her eyes intense, reflecting the dim light from the kitchen.
Well, you with me?
Legend met her gaze. He didn't say a word, but his hand reached across the table, took her hand and squeezed once, firmly. That was enough. It was a silent, unbreakable pact. His loyalty was a weapon. The next day, the smell of polish, the buzz of dryers, and the buzz of gossip filled Jezzy's nail salon off Western Avenue, not far from the bustling intersection of Florence. The scent of acrylic and polish hung in the air. Jazzy, mid-20s, vibrant and magnetic, with a laugh that could cut tension and a glare that could freeze it, stood over a client, carefully brushing on neon pink polish like it was a signature. Her salon off Normandy and Western was more than a place to get your nails done. It was a hub, a command center wrapped in glitter and gossip. Secrets spilled easier when your hands were in acetone. And Jazzy, she caught every whisper. She wasn't just in the loop, she was the loop. She and Cartier met years ago, back when Jazzy was still doing nails out of her cousin's kitchen and Cartier was running quiet drops for Rome. One afternoon, Cartier showed up to collect an envelope from a twitchy dude who owed. Jazzy clocked the whole thing from the stove while stirring gumbo, then offered Cartier a plate and said, "Next time, make him tip. You scared the money out his drawers." They laughed and never stopped. They were opposites. Jazzy loud and glittery, Cartier all silence and smoke. But they worked. Trust came easy. Loyalty came natural. So when Cartier walked into the salon now, years later, the air shifted like it always did. Heads turned, conversations softened. Jazzy looked up, grin spreading, eyes twinkling with that signature mischief.
Girl, what the what? I know you lying. Where you been at, chick? Thought good old Auntie Tris had you chained to the kitchen sink polishing her silver?
Plotting, that's where I've been, plotting.
Jazzy's eyebrows rose playfully, and a client giggled. She finished with her client, dismissed her with a flurry of compliments and a wink, and turned her full attention to Cartier, leaning forward on the counter.
World domination? You trying to take over the world, brain? Last time I checked, your ass was still under Auntie's thumb, a silent soldier in her tired little army.
Not anymore. I'm building something different. Quiet, surgical, untraceable. We're moving products so clean it won't leave a scent, let alone a trail. No flash, no noise, just precision. No paper, no problems, and no names in mouths.
Jazzy leaned in closer, her voice dropping conspiratorially.
Oh, now you speaking my lingo. And, where do I fit in this silent empire, queen? My hands are ready.
You're the ears. You know the whispers. Who's flush, who's desperate, who's looking for a new hookup. You're the plug. The eyes and ears of the nightlife from the clubs downtown to the underground spots in Compton. And you keep us sharp.
As he smiled wide, a flicker of genuine excitement in her eyes.
I can most definitely work with that. My girls hear everything, from the clubs downtown to the block parties in Compton. Nobody connects like Miss Jazzy, baby. Word on the street starts here. You feel me?
She winked. Cartier gave her a rare, almost imperceptible smile, a tiny crack in her armor. A silent empire began to rise. The earlier track evolved, becoming more sophisticated, driven, but still with an underlying grittiness. A low, persistent hum of ambition. In a dimly lit parking lot near Compton Avenue, Cartier, Legend, and Jazzy conducted a quiet exchange. No obvious product, just subtle hand signals and a quick, almost imperceptible transfer of a nondescript weighted bag between dark vehicles. The transaction was over before anyone noticed. It was fluid, like a dance. In a warehouse, Rosecrans in Central, near Gonzales Park, Legend, no shirt on and sweating under a single bare bulb, meticulously broke down a large shipment into smaller, unidentifiable, vacuum-sealed packages. His movements were efficient, precise, almost ritualistic. The air was cool and dusty. At a private residence in View Park, Windsor Hills, Jazzy, dressed impeccably, hosted a casual poker night. She subtly introduced Cartier to a circle of high-end discreet buyers, not through direct solicitation, but through carefully curated connections and whispered, trust-laden recommendation. The money being played with was casual but serious. On the south central streets near Avalon and El Segundo, Cartier drove her unassuming, older model sedan through a busy intersection. The setting sun cast long shadows as she observed and listened. A crew sped by in a loud, flashy muscle car, drawing every eye, bass thumping a chaotic beat. Cartier shook her head, a faint, almost pitying look on her face. Her way was different. Her way was invisible. Back at Trish's house in Hyde Park, Aunt Trish reviewed her ledger. Her brow was furrowed. The numbers weren't adding up. Her usual flow was drying up. She couldn't pinpoint it, but there was a leak, a shift in the currents of the street that she couldn't quite grasp. She looked out her window at the darkening street, a sense of deep unease growing. Inside Trish's kitchen again, the air was heavy with unspoken tension. She chopped peppers like they were her enemies, her movements agitated, almost aggressive, the sharp, rhythmic sound of the knife hitting the cutting board, punctuating her words. Katia sat at the table, ostensibly reading an old newspaper, but her eyes constantly watched Trish's every subtle movement.
Business is stagnant. More than stagnant, it's like the air's been sucked out of the room. Been hearing whispers about a new player, moving fast, moving clean. Nobody knows who, no names, no faces, just clean product appearing out of thin air. Too clean. Some of my usual clients are quiet, way too quiet. Like they got something else going on, something better, something unseen.
Streets talk. Always do more than that. They shift.
They talk, but they ain't saying enough. This new crew, they're smart, too smart. They ain't chasing flash. They're building, quietly, like a spider in the dark. Trish turned, her gaze directly on Cartier, her eyes narrowing, cold and accusing. She dropped the knife with a clatter. Funny, innit? Soon as I bring you in, soon as I teach you what I know, this ghost shows up. Sounds like someone I taught.
You taught me well, Auntie. Real well. Yep. Show me how to count money, clean it, move it, how to look a man in the eye while taking everything from him. But you messed up one thing. You forgot I was watching the whole time. Not just learning the game, but watching you play it wrong.
She steps closer, drops her voice just enough to sting. Silence. War in the air. The air crackled with unspoken accusation and undeniable challenge. A gauntlet had been thrown. The sun beat down on a South Central street near a faded liquor store. Distant sirens, street chatter, and the casual thump of bass from passing cars filled the air. Rico, in his 20s, nervous and desperate, sweat beading on his forehead, ran down the sun-baked street. He clutched a small, half-empty duffel bag, glancing frantically over his shoulder, his eyes wide with fear. A beat-up dark sedan screeched to a halt beside him.
They were waiting on Vermont near the park. I swear to God they came out of nowhere. They took the drop, all of it.
You have got to be kidding me. You lost it? All of it? The whole damn load?
Rico nodded frantically, tears welling in his eyes, sweat beating on his brows.
I swear, Auntie, I tried. They came out of nowhere. Big dudes, masked up, like ghosts. I barely made it.
Get in. Get your ass in now, you useless, pathetic little punk. Get in the damn car.
Rico scrambled into the car, fumbling with the door. Trish pulled away with a violent lurch, tires squealing, leaving a trail of exhaust. At Cartier's safe house, a ghost's nest of maps and monitors. The subtle hum of electronics and low voices filled the meticulously organized room. Large, illuminated maps covered one wall, crisscrossed with lines and annotations. Multiple surveillance monitors showed various angles of the city, all muted. Cartier sat at a large table, reviewing intel with Legend and Jazzy. A tablet screen displayed grainy, zoomed-in images of Rico, panicked, talking to Trish in her car.
So Rico just lost a job? After Trish Cruz started feeling the pinch and ran crying to her, expecting protection? Please, Jazzy scoffed, a sharp, bitter laugh.
Come on now. You know this had to be a setup. It's obvious. A kid like Rico don't just lose that much. Not without some kind of a script. It's happening too much.
Rico sloppy, but not stupid enough to risk that much on his own. He's a puppet. Trish's hand is in his back, pulling the strings. She wants to smoke us out, make us look like we can't collect on our debts.
So she's trying to bait us out, a public show of force.
She wants a meeting, a public display of power to settle things, to reassert her dominance. She thinks she can scare us.
A text message flashed on Cartier's phone. She read it, her expression unreadable.
Speaking of which, a peace meeting. Tomorrow night, the Imperial Star.
Peace meeting on Long Beach Boulevard in Imperial? You mean that place near St. Francis? Since when does Auntie Trish do peace? She knows that territory is a powder keg.
She doesn't. She does pay back, and so do I. This isn't peace. This is the calm before the storm. She thinks she's setting a trap.
Cartier's eyes, cold and focused, scanned the city map. Her finger tapped the intersection of Long Beach Boulevard and Imperial, then tapped other points on the map.
Let's prepare for rain, a real downpour.
At the Imperial Star Lounge, bass thumped Kendrick Lamar's Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe through the speakers. Disco lights spun in the selling. People drinking and smoking while the deal makers mingled. The Imperial Star, a popular spot on Long Beach Boulevard and Imperial Highway, right on the Linwood border near St. Francis Hospital, pulsed with the thrumming beat of K-Dot's hit song. Red and blue neon lights from the bar and stage cast long, shifting shadows across the crowded but not chaotic room. Patrons were dressed sharply, a mix of street-level players and more established figures, all looking to see and be seen. The air was thick with the smell of expensive cologne and cheap perfume, a mix of expectation and faint tension. Cartier, in a sleek, form-fitting, dark dress that blended into the shadows, sat at a secluded, slightly elevated booth with Legend and Jazzy. Legend was stoic, his eyes constantly scanning every face, every entrance, every exit. Jazzy was unusually subdued, a flicker of apprehension in her vibrant eyes, her usual sparkle dimmed by the gravity of the situation. Aunt Trish entered, flanked by her two imposing enforcers and a nervous-looking Rico, who kept his head down. Trish scanned the room like a predator, her gaze finally resting on Cartier. A tight, unsmiling nod was exchanged between the two women. Trish approached Cartier's booth, her enforcers positioning themselves discreetly but menacingly. Rico hovered nervously behind her, unable to meet anyone's gaze.
Cartier, so glad you could make it. We need to clear the air. This little misunderstanding with Rico, it's bad for business.
Misunderstanding? Or a sloppy attempt to regain control? Your territory, Auntie, not mine.
Chris's jaw tightens. She glances at her enforcers. A subtle signal passes between them.
Rico here feels really bad. He made a mistake. He lost some product. He just wants to make it right. Right, Rico?
Rico shifted uncomfortably, avoiding Cartier's gaze, nodding frantically.
You ran crying to Auntie for protection. That's not how we do things. That's a weakness. In this game, weakness gets you buried.
Hey, I didn't mean no disrespect, Cartier. I just got jumped. Swear.
Jumped. You got jumped, huh? Or set up? You knew that drop was ours, Rico.
Enough, damn it. This is a peace meeting, not an inquisition or some goddamn interrogation. We're offering a settlement, a fair price for the lost merchandise. No hard feelings. We put this to rest.
A slow, cold smile spread across Cartier's face, chilling in its intensity.
No hard feelings. Now, Auntie, you know I don't do peace. However, I will do payback.
Suddenly, the music cut out. The low hum of the lounge died. A jarring, deafening silence descended, save for the distant, faint wail of an ambulance siren. Every eye in the room snapped to the silence. Then, a rapid succession of gunshots erupted from the rear of the lounge, deafening in the sudden quiet. Screams, panic. Tables overturned, drinks spilled. Chaos exploded. Patrons dived for cover. Legend instantly shoved Cartier down, shielding her with his body. Jazzy, reacting instinctively, saw a blur of movement and a flash of metal. She spotted a gunman's arm swing into position, aiming directly for Cartier. Without hesitation, she shoved Cartier harder, throwing herself bodily in the path of the incoming fire. Two muffled, sickening thuds followed. Jazzy's eyes widened in disbelief and pain. She stumbled, then collapsed onto Cartier, a crimson stain rapidly blooming on her vibrant dress, stark against the dark fabric.
No, oh my God, Jazzy.
The gunmen, seeing their targets hit, melted back into the panicked, stampeding crowd and disappeared into the chaos of the emergency exit. The lounge was a pandemonium of screams, frantic footsteps, and the sickening smell of gunpowder and blood. Legend was instantly on his knees beside Jazzy, applying pressure to the wounds with a desperate urgency. But it was bad. Too bad. Cartier cradled Jazzy's head, her own hands now stained. Jazzy's eyes were glazed, fixed on Cartier's, her breath coming in ragged, shallow gasps.
I told you, girl. I got you, sis, always.
She whispered weakly, a faint, defiant smile on her lips, her voice barely audible. Her hand, still adorned with brightly colored nails, reached for Cartier's face, a final trembling touch. Then it went limp, her eyes fixed, empty. Cartier stared at Jazzy, her best friend, her sister in everything but blood, lying dead in her arms. The vibrant life drained from her eyes. The raw grief, primal and searing, cracked the cold, calculating veneer she had worn for so long. But beneath the grief, a terrifying, unyielding rage began to boil. A silence, more profound than death, settled over her. She looked up, her eyes blazing, scanning the chaos. She saw Aunt Trish and Rico retreating quickly, melting into the shadows near the main entrance. their faces pale, but their movements hurried. Trish cast a fleeting, unreadable glance back at Cartier, a glance that confirmed the betrayal, solidifying it into an unbreakable fact. Cartier's grip on Jazzy tightened, a silent scream of fury. A few weeks later, a haunting, minimalist score, dark, pervasive, and filled with a cold, simmering rage, accompanied the faint sounds of the city, almost muffled, like listening from underwater. At Cartier's safe house, the room was dark, save for the glow of the city maps and surveillance monitors. Cartier sat alone, motionless, a silhouette against the screens. Jazzy's empty chair stood as a stark reminder. The weight of her loss was a physical presence, but her grief wasn't tears. It was a simmering, quiet transformation. Her eyes were like cold steel. Legend sat in a corner, watching her, a silent sentinel. Across town, in an alleyway near Normandy and Slauson, Rico, looking more desperate and paranoid than ever, made a hurried, whispered call on an old burner phone. He clutched a worn baseball cap, glancing frantically over his shoulder every few seconds, jumpy. He was a target. At Trish's house in Hyde Park, Trish paced her living room, agitated, on the phone. Her voice was strained. She slammed the phone down. Her network was unraveling. Whispers about a ghost, a silent hunter who left no trace but pure devastation, were spreading like a wildfire across the streets. Her allies were going dark. Near Compton High, on a flickering TV in a dive bar, a local news anchor reported grimly on a gruesome discovery. Police tape fluttered in the wind around a burnt-out, unrecognizable car on 108th Street in Watts, still emitting a faint, acrid smell of burnt plastic and fuel. CSI technicians in white suits moved methodically through the debris. The scene was grim, isolated. The report detailed a mutilated body, charred beyond recognition, found in the vehicle. Identification pending, but sources suggested it was a known street runner, linked to a recent turf dispute. The report showed a blurred image of the car, then cut to the impassive face of a veteran detective. At a police interrogation, the room was stark, cold, sterile, filled with the buzzing of fluorescent lights and muffled city sounds from outside. A grizzled detective, in his 50s, weary, having seen too much, with a permanent frown line between his brows, sat across from Aunt Trish. Trish was composed, but her eyes betrayed a deep-seated fear she could not completely mask. Her hands were clasped tightly on the table.
Rico D. body found on 1/8, charred beyond recognition, mutilated, missing, significant parts. You know him, don't you, Mrs. Monroe?
Rico worked for me, a small-time runner, used to. I haven't seen him since the night at the Imperial Star. Haven't seen him since he messed up.
We have reason to believe this was a message, not just a killing, a message. A note was left, tattooed on what was left of his chest: hustle smart or die sloppy. Any ideas who C is, Ms. Monroe?
Trish looked away, her composure beginning to fray, her jaw working. She glanced at the two-ways mirror, as if sensing eyes on her.
The streets are a dangerous place, Detective. Full of people who want what others have. Full of ghosts.
We know about the rivalry, the turf war heating up, the bloodshed, and the whispers about a new player. A woman, ghost-like, leaves no trace but the bodies and the notes, clean, precise, surgical.
He paused, letting the words hang in the air.
They're calling her Cartier, the silent queen.
Trish stared at him, her silence a confession, a cold, hard truth settling in her eyes. Her reign was over. A few weeks later, Cartier stood alone on a rooftop overlooking the sprawling, glittering, endless expanse of south-central Los Angeles. The cityscape stretched out like a vast, uncaring tapestry of light and shadow. The iconic Compton Water Tower stood stark against the distant glow of downtown. Below, the familiar grid of streets: Long Beach Boulevard, Imperial, Avalon, Wilmington. The sprawling networks of Imperial Courts, Nickerson Gardens, Jordan Downs, were all illuminated by streetlights. A kingdom laid bare. The cool, dry breeze whipped around her, tugging at her dark, unadorned clothing. She was a stark, solitary silhouette against the city glow. She took a small, folded piece of paper from her pocket, the note she had left on Rico. She slowly tore it into tiny, meticulous pieces, letting them scatter in the wind, disappearing into the vastness of the city. Her face was etched with a profound, terrifying solitude. There was no triumph in her expression, only a quiet, resolute desolation. The raw, searing rage had settled, leaving behind a cold, empty space. She had built her throne, but the cost had been everything. She was a queen, yes, but her kingdom is built on the graves of those she loved and those she destroyed. The crown she wears is heavy with the cost of her ambition, forged in blood and betrayal. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor passed through her. A ghost of a memory, Jazzy's vibrant laugh, Legend's silent, unwavering support, the impossible innocence she lost in that dumpster all those years ago, a child that was abandoned. Suddenly, a faint glint of light from an adjacent rooftop caught her eye. Cartier's head snapped up, her eyes narrowing. She sees movement. A figure, dark and obscured, raising something. The sharp crack of a single sniper shot, impossibly loud in the night, cut through the city sounds. Cartier doesn't cry out. Her body lurches, a silent shockwave passing through her. A bloom of dark crimson spreads quickly across her chest, stark against her black top. Her hand flies to the wound, her fingers coming away slick. Her eyes, still wide and defiant, slowly fixed on the city lights before her. The empire she bled for. A faint, almost imperceptible whisper left her lips. A final, guttural breath.
Jazzy.
She stumbled, her knees buckling. The paper scraps fluttered around her as she collapsed onto the gritty rooftop, her body sprawled, utterly still. The wind howled, picking up speed, carrying her last breath into the vast, indifferent city. The lights of Compton continued to hum, unbothered. The bass thumped in the distance.
Thanks for listening, Shadow Watchers family. What did you think about Cartier's story? Did Aunt Trish really betray her? Or was it survival? And let's be real, was Cartier too cold? Or just playing the game the way it's meant to be played? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think. I'm working hard behind the scenes to bring you more stories like this, gritty, bold, and unforgettable. So if this hit you, go ahead and hit back, but not me, the like button. Subscribe as well, and if you want, share it with someone who loves a dark tales. More stories are coming, more secrets, more shadows. Trust me, it only gets deeper from here. Until next time, stay sharp, stay watching. The shadows are listening.